about to crush arms. Oh my god, it's gonna be crazy. And
I just started the screen recording. Kai's talking about his workout tonight.
it's just chilling in between classes, watching Harry Potter, and then dozed off. Woke up to my phone vibrator. My
Power nap. I like it. All right. Couple things that we need to do. Okay. I'll get your attendance after class, but so Matt's out for basketball. Lexi's out because of her knee. Chelsea's out for soccer. Amy's out for nationals. Faith is out for nationals. Oh, and Lane is actually participating in nationals. Shout out to Lane. Sorry for forgetting you. Good luck. Good luck this weekend. Couple things we need to go over. We need to finish up this vitamin section. And hey, stop doing your plan.
I think you're wrong. That's mine. I think that's mine.
Wrong about what?
I think elementary school is a gym. It's on the gym section.
Is it really?
Which is why I was confused when I was taking it.
243 or 241?
One.
You good now? I didn't think anyone would take. So these, do people know what phytochemicals are? Have you heard of this before? Jamie, you're nodding your head. Why are you nodding your head? You've heard of it? What's your thoughts on it? What do you think they are? So phytochemicals are these micronutrients, meaning, what does micronutrients mean?
Very small nutrients.
What is the defining feature of a macronutrient? Macronutrient. Yeah. It provides energy. So micronutrients, on the other hand, yeah. I mean, a single molecule of glucose is also quite small. It could fall in the micro category for. Okay. So phytochemicals are micronutrients. They are small, and they also contain no energy. That's important. However, they are plant-based. So micronutrients are typically, phytochemicals are plant-based molecules, plant-based small molecules that have certain effects on physiology. Okay, that's the most general way to put it. Now, the phytochemicals really started blowing up in like the early 2000s in terms of we always knew that plants were more than we always knew that that food was offering more than just what we knew was in it. So, for example, for those of you that were in general nutrition and read In Defense of Food, you might recall that when nutritionists found out, say, when they started isolating vitamins, then the idea is that, well, this multivitamin has everything we need. And that's not necessarily true. It just has these vitamins that we actually know about, and we can prevent frank deficiency by taking a multivitamin. The other thing this comes up a lot is that, for example, way back in the day, and I don't exactly know what the timeline was on this, but when Western scientists in England discovered that plants have no energy, they basically said, well, what do we need plants for if they're not giving us energy? We eat food to get energy, so you don't need fresh vegetables, basically. And when it came to light, the importance of fiber and the importance of, is when this scientist, I wish I knew a little bit more about this, but I just know I was told this story by someone I respect and who knows, he's forgotten more about nutrition than I will ever know. And he said that basically what happened is this guy traveled somewhere where they had a high plant-based diet, and he noticed that their poop was really soft, and they didn't struggle to take shits, and they had they just had like soft stool that was easy. Their bowel movements came very easy. He also noticed that they didn't have any like hemorrhoids and colon issues and diverticulitis and all these different types of things that we now know that fiber is really important in preventing. And what he realized was that all the nutrients, so the plants are providing fiber, and that fiber is really important for lining the intestinal tract and softening our stool. And we realized that was one lesson in understanding how you can't just kind of, for lack of a better term, cherry pick what you want out of a nutrient or out of a food and just assume that's going to give your body everything that it needs, right? So now we enter this era where we know, okay, starches, protein, fat, we know these things have energy in them. We know that plants don't have energy that humans can access, but we know that they're really important. And then other epidemiologic data starts to come out and demonstrate that like vegetarians have lower heart disease, and people that eat more vegetables and more fruit have better overall health and less incidence of different types of chronic diseases and things like that. And it becomes difficult to truly understand the impact of fruits and vegetables in those, because those are very complex diseases that involve genetics, lifestyle, weight, obesity, all these other types of issues, right? So, but there's enough evidence that built up to suggest that we know fruits and vegetables are really important for us. And then you start looking and we say, well, let's start looking for these micronutrients that we know exist, vitamins, minerals, those types of things. There are lots of those in plants. But now what we're trying to get into, or what people are interested in now, are what like non-vitamin, non-energy containing micronutrients are found in plant-based foods that provide important benefits for health. Right? And so they started doing chemical analysis on fruit and vegetables to figure out what the hell is in them, and is that having any type of effect. So, for example, you hear all these things about dark chocolate or coffee being really good for you. And most of that is now attributed to the presence of phytonutrients that are in it, phytochemicals that are in it. Particularly in the case of coffee, there is a phytonutrient called a tannin. Tannins are what gives coffee its dark color when it's roasted, and gives the liquid, when you extract that solute out of it, gives that liquid its dark color. And that is really rich in antioxidant properties, and it's a rich biologically active chemical that we ingest when we're drinking that. Same with the compounds in cocoa or dark chocolate, and that's why they've now started to put the percentage of cacao, or however you want to say it, cocoa, on. I'm just saying it like it's spelled. You guys know what I'm talking about? CACAO? Do a Webster thing and hit the little speaker next to it. Let me know what it is. Webster's dictionary. Huh? I want to know.
How do you spell cocoa?
No, we know how to spell cocoa. I'm talking about. Talking about cacao.
I said cocoa and it spelled it K-O-K-O for me when it was saying what I said.
C-A-C-A-O.
Cacao.
Cacao. Did you hear that? Let the record show.
Cacao.
Do you understand? Cacao. Bean-like seed from which cocoa, cocoa butter, and chocolate are made. Don't laugh at me when I say cacao. Sorry. Well, now I know too. I'm not just hoping that that's correct. So on a chocolate bar, Saizan, have you seen this? Probably not in the candy you eat. Have you seen it on good? Just coming at you.
Yeah, like you're even making fun of the candy I eat. It's not enough.
Listen, if next time you buy a dark chocolate bar, try and get one with a really high percentage of cacao.
I'm not gonna get a dark chocolate bar.
Why?
Dark chocolate's awful.
Candy. It's not the candy
I think it's awful.
You like it? I like it too.
The sea salt dark chocolate?
Yeah. They even have it at Safeway now. Dark chocolate with sea salt.
Nice kind though. There's
Nice
no
kind,
frothy
yeah.
kind.
Ghirardelli's milk chocolate with caramel.
Not milk chocolate. No. You get no health benefits from milk chocolate.
What health benefit do you get from dark chocolate?
That's what we're talking about. Tannins. Phytochemicals. Phytonutrients. Tannins. Antioxidants. And there's nitrates in dark chocolate. So there was a study that just came out maybe 6 months ago that demonstrated that cycling capacity and blood flow increased because when you eat dark chocolate prior to cycling, because it had it's really rich in what are called nitrates, and nitrates are the precursor to what? To what? What locally produced gas in exercising? What? Nitric oxide. So nitrates are the precursor for nitric oxide, and they are, what does nitric oxide do? It's a powerful, we've talked about this so many times. Expands your what? What is that called? Yeah, vasodilation, right? So, but it occurs locally in which muscles?
Working muscles.
Working muscles. So overall, your blood pressure increases and you have overall vasoconstriction, but then it opens up into a 6-lane highway when it gets to the working muscles, and we can direct blood flow in that way during exercise. So dark chocolate has nitrates in it that can increase your circulating nitrates and increase your capacity to give blood flow to your exercising muscles.
So you're telling me that if I do a high volume workout and take some dark chocolate with it, I'm going to have a bigger pump than I would if I didn't take dark chocolate?
That's right. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
That's what this paper would suggest.
I could throw down some dark chocolate.
You could also take beet extract. So this is another place where nitrates is a phytochemical. We've heard about taking beets or beetroot extract. And beetroot extract is also allows for nitrates to build up in the bloodstream, and then you basically have increased availability of precursor to produce nitric oxide when you exercise. So there's a couple supplement companies. One is called Beet Elite. Super clever, huh, Hannah? You got a big kick out of that.
I'll stick with chocolate.
Okay. So Beet Elite is a powder, and then you just put it into some sort of liquid and chug it down. Now, the gentleman, the lead scientist at the company Beet Elite is John Ivey. Why does that name sound familiar?
It was on one of the article books that we read.
Could you be any less, could you be any more general, please?
Isn't he a nutrient?
Yeah, he wrote Nutrient Timing. Yeah, he's the one that developed a lot of how we understand post-exercise anabolic window and those types of things. Now, and who am I to say, because he is a Baus. But he says that you can take 1 packet of Beat Elite about an hour or 45 minutes prior and get increased blood flow of exercising. Some of the other literature would suggest that you need to take a packet of Beat Elite for about 5 days, one packet per day, 5 days leading up to your key competition, and that will get the blood level of nitrates built up enough in your bloodstream to then have an effect. Because it's all about having a high level of circulating nitrates in your bloodstream, so that when you activate the enzyme that converts nitrates into nitric oxide, there's a lot of precursor there for it to act on. Okay, so these nitrates that are found in beetroots are a phytonutrient. Do you understand? So, and there's a lot of stuff that comes out about this, so it's like, and it frustrates news people because, and there's actually some really interesting lay articles that have been written within the last year about what is the role of like the scientific dissemination of information, especially around nutrition. And so that is dark chocolate good for you? Is milk chocolate different than dark chocolate? Is beet extract good for you? What if I just eat a bunch of beets? What about beet juice? What about, and there's like different studies and different reports about all these things, and they rarely like hold a 1-hour journal club session where they do a deep dive into the data. They're just saying a recent study demonstrates that chocolate is good for you. Like, it's not helping a lot of people, right? Now here, in the wonderful confines of HWS 325, we get to unpack these things, talk about it. All right, so phytonutrients have a role, different physiologic processes. Now, the role of phytonutrients can also be overblown. So you'll hear this type of generalized talk a lot from plant-based advocates and plant-based athletes, where they'll kind of be talking about their approach to health and wellness, and they are only talking about how, and they just use these things like, plants have tons of phytonutrients and we need those, and people don't get them, and they're super good for your health, and they're packed with protein, and and they just speak in these general terms, right? And so, yes, we need to get a lot of fruits and vegetables, particularly vegetables, and we don't do a good enough job at that. And athletes need those as well. You can't really OD on vegetables. There are some instances where, like, you can overeat carrot juice, you can overdrink carrot juice, and it will actually turn your skin orange and your retinas orange. But it's pretty rare to overdose on vegetables, right? Fruit is not like that, particularly from an athletic standpoint. A lot of people mistake fruits and vegetables for being the same thing. And fruits need to be limited kind of in the same way that carbohydrates are. So you basically want to limit fruits to your meal time. And if you get 3 fruits a day, 1 at each meal, or all 3 servings at 1 meal, you're probably in good shape. But in terms of vegetables, we don't get enough of them, and we don't get enough of variety of them. All right. And that goes for, when I talk to athletes too, I'm like, if you think back, if you're at dinner and you think back and you can't think of at least 3 or 4 vegetables that you've eaten in that day, then just go to the fridge and grab a handful of spinach and stuff it in your mouth and eat it, because it's good for you. Or eat celery and carrots and all this type of stuff, right? And part of it is that the sum is greater than the individual parts when we eat that food. And there are a lot of these phytochemicals. We don't know all of them. And this is Michael Pollan's point, right? We know what food is, but we know what real food is, and we need to stop trying to say that we found the particular parts of food that are the only thing that are important, and we need to stop extracting those and saying that we can engineer a better food than what nature and evolution has produced over the years, right? We are in a unique position in a westernized country with access to basically any type of food that we want. And so what happens is that it used to be different regions of the world would have different health characteristics because of what was available for them to eat. And now we can get spinach in the wintertime. We can eat oranges in the wintertime. We can eat strawberries in the wintertime, right? Now, part of what's going on, Jamie? You doing okay?
No.
What's wrong?
The kidney stones.
Oh.
It's not good right now.
I'm really sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, you do what you need to do.
I probably will.
Okay. I just looked over and she goes,
It's not fun.
no, I don't. You're a strong person. So getting a wide variety of especially vegetables is really important for athletes. Now, having said that, it's also important for people just in general health, and it's important to be aware of that you are probably leaving some potential on the table if you're not at an optimal level of these different things. And you can't just say, we're going to talk about a couple, but you can't just say, so lycopene is one of them. Lycopene is the phytochemical that gives tomatoes their red color. And it's a really powerful antioxidant. It has all this. So, of course, as soon as we discovered lycopene, isolated lycopene, found out some of the things it was done, we started doing experiments on it, and then we created a pill where you can get all your lycopene that you need in a little pill, right? But that's assuming that that is the only thing in tomatoes that is important when you ingest a tomato, right? And so we don't want to throw out all the other good stuff that is in tomatoes just because we make the assumption that lycopene is the only thing that we need. Can you appreciate this line of thinking? Now, the flip side of that is that what if we concentrate lycopene and take it in a pill form and it provides some sort of ergogenic effect beyond eating like 10 pounds of tomatoes, right? Then we have to consider from an athletic standpoint, performance standpoint, we have to consider using it, right? So there's always multiple sides to this discussion, and it applies not just to micronutrients and vitamins, phytochemicals and vitamins. It also applies when you say things like, well, the protein in turkey is the same as the protein in whey. Or why do I have to take leucine in a concentrated form when leucine is a part of whey, right? But we know through different types of discussion that sometimes concentrated forms of naturally occurring products that are isolated have particular effects and provide particular signals, right? But but there are other times when we want the whole food. We don't want to abandon whole foods because we know this one thing about an isolated nutrient. You have to have both, and you have to know which are both. You have to know which of the two are effective. Good luck, Jamie. Okay. Okay. So we don't know specifically all the ones that do or do not affect human health. We know several that enhance health, and it's clear that diets high in fruits and vegetables are important for overall health and important for overall performance. But we don't want to say that taking the pill, the supplement's called Lycomato. We don't want to only rely on Lycomato, right? But I mean, if you're going to be going to the Olympics in Beijing and you might not have access, or in Sochi, Russia, and you might not have access to, you're going for 2 or 3 weeks and you might not have access to lycopene, then that's when maybe you could consider something like that, right? So there's always a particular context for which to make these decisions when you're working with athletes. Okay? All right. So phenolic compounds, phenols, fall into categories like flavonoids are phenolic compounds and phenolic acids. Phenols are demonstrated to have positive effects on heart disease. They act as antioxidants, decrease atherosclerosis. these phenolic compounds are particularly high in green teas and also wine and the skin of grapes. So a lot of times you'll hear that like red wine is good for you, but white wine is not, those sorts of things. Part of that has to do with the color of the red wine. That color is due to being high in flavonoids, and flavonoids are these powerful antioxidants that we need to get, right? Coffee would be in that same category. So the skin of fruit. Green tea, you've all heard of ECGC, which is a major component. I always forget what it's called. It's like a really long chemical name. Major component in green tea. And so much, in fact, that there is some evidence that consuming green tea extract in pill form may be beneficial, or could be a good way to get a bolus of this antioxidant. All right. Organosulfides contained in vegetables, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage. These have been demonstrated to decrease cancer risk when consumed regularly. Allele compounds in leeks, onions, garlic, chives. Also organic sulfides, they may reduce cancer risk, and cholesterol. These are all long-term nutrients. And when you start looking across these, what foods they're found in, we're talking about foods that are grown from the earth, and they are present themselves in a bunch of different colors. They're green leafy vegetables, they're fruits, they're colorful vegetables, and so variety is a key here, right? So you don't want to just say, well, yeah, I get 5 servings of vegetable a day, but the only vegetable I eat is broccoli, all right? Or the only vegetable I eat is carrots. You want it to be a variety of things. For those of you like Saison that may not want to keep fresh vegetables around all the time, may be concerned about them going bad, may be concerned about how often you have to go to the market to purchase such things. They have these it's basically a stepping stone. It's like one step beyond baby food, but it's in the baby food aisle, and they're these organic fruit and vegetable packs, and they basically have 2 to 3 servings of fruit and vegetable in them. They never go bad. They can be stored at room temperature. They're about 80 cents a piece, and they have all different. There's only the only ingredients in them are the fruits and vegetables that are mashed up and injected into those pouches. So my kids eat the crap out of these things, right? So they get, and there's broccoli, peas, and pears. That's one of our favorite. BPP, baby. Broccoli, peas, and pears. Broccoli, peas, and pears. There's carrots, mango, squash. There's, there's carrots and applesauce. There's mango and something else. And, I mean, they taste really good. They're only about 70 to 100 calories, but they have a ton of, it's just, and it has all the fiber in it and everything. It's not juice, right? This is a big reason why juice is an issue, in my opinion, is because when you juice, you're basically just concentrating all the sugar and liquid components, soluble components in a vegetable, and then you're throwing out all of the stuff that has good micronutrients in it, all the fiber, all the color, all the or a lot of the color, those types of things. If you look at what's left over after you make juice out of vegetable, it's a huge pile of like really nutritious stuff. Now, it doesn't have energy, right? Because a lot of times it's the roughage and that sort of stuff, but we know that that stuff has a role. So things like naked juice, Odwalla drinks, those types of things that are marketed as being healthy, when you look at those things have like 30 grams of sugar in them. It's unbelievable sugar content, right? But you look at the side and it's like, oh, this thing has 4 apples, it has like 5 green beans, it has this many heads of broccoli. Well, no, it has the juice from those things, but it doesn't actually have those things. So go to the baby food aisle, crush those packs.
I'm going to, honestly.
Crush those packs, man. Yeah. So, okay, lycopene. Lycopene is a carotenoid. Carotenoids are found in colorful vegetables like carrots and tomatoes. Lycopene has been associated with prostate health, could reduce advanced prostate cancer development. Their active individuals benefit from lycopene because it combats long-term oxidative stress, right? So we talked about how oxidative stress is important for while we're exercising, but we want to combat oxidative stress throughout the recovery process and those types of things. That's my interpretation of it anyway. So basically, I already went over this in terms of the importance of this for athletes. It's unlikely that Cooper, what's on your goal sheet this year for the 200? 22.4. So Cooper's not going to get up to the starting line and chow down on a bunch of tomatoes and then run 20 flat. Do we understand? It doesn't work like that. But it would behoove you to eat a lot more vegetables, or make sure that vegetables are a staple in your diet. The other thing is that vegetables are very nutritious and they're really low in calories. They add volume. So for people that have to make weight and those types of things, you can get a lot of nutrients and you can add volume and kind of a feeling of fullness by eating a lot of vegetables. All right? Questions? Yes?
Does, if you were to like saute mushrooms and onions, would that remove a lot of the nutrients?
Super good question. Not necessarily. Some, when you cook certain vegetables and some of the vitamins and some of the phytonutrients are less accessible or they're damaged during the cooking process. Others are made easier to digest and more absorptive, right? So a mixture is your key there. So one of the things that's kind of interesting is that in Asian cultures, they almost never eat uncooked vegetables. They think it's like not good for you to eat uncooked vegetables. And when you cook vegetables, it softens some of the fiber, it alters the chemical structure of some things, and it makes it easier to digest. It's easier on your stomach and those sorts of things. So a lot of us have probably experienced this, or now you will be aware of it. Like if you eat raw broccoli, it's a completely different experience on your gastrointestinal burping situation than if you eat cooked broccoli, right? It's just a lot easier to digest and absorb, and less of it ends up in your large intestine, creating gas and getting broken down there and those sorts of things. So there are some examples where it can go either way. So even the Asian students, the PhD students that I worked with in Southern California, they even cook their spinach and lettuce. And every day, every single one of them would start their lunch with this cooked bowl of lettuce soup. And it's just warm water with some salt and different types of lettuce in it cooked. And they make it the night before and bring it in and heat it up. And because they believe that it's the warm water like gets their stomach ready to digest their lunch, and that that the nutrients from cooking the spinach are more accessible and all this other stuff. So there's some really cool cultural type things that go into that. Now, I will say also that when you look at it from a evolutionary physiology standpoint, so there's an evolutionary physiologist, he basically tries to understand why we are the way we are, from why we walk the way we are, why our muscles develop the way we are, why our stomachs develop the way we are, all those sorts of things. So they look at physiology through the lens of evolution, and they use fossil records and old jaws that they found and teeth that they found and all types of stuff to figure out like what we used to be built for and make sense of it. So there's this really smart, he's intelligent, and he's also, you can understand his work, and he works at Harvard. His name is Daniel Lieberman. He's a big reason why the whole barefoot running craze started, because he wrote a paper for Nature, the journal Nature, at one point about how we as humans have evolved for slow, long distance running, and that our foot is specifically evolved for it and all this other type of stuff. And people like took little parts of it and took it to the extreme degree. Anyways, this guy says that one of the major reasons why we are different than other mammals and other animals is because we started, one, eating meat, and two, so because we developed ways to hunt and like get a lot of meat, and we know that meat is really nutrient rich and gives us energy and protein and all these other types of things. Two, we are basically the only species on the planet that processes their food. So we cook meat, which makes it a lot more able to be broken down and absorbed. We also, hunter-gatherers that relied on vegetables and I think it's called tubules. Is that what it's called? Roots? Yeah, tubules, roots. Those are really high in fiber, and they're really difficult to process, and they're really difficult to break down. And as soon as we started cooking them and boiling them and adding spices to doing all this type of stuff, we were able to consume way more nutrients out of the food that we were actually eating. And it allowed our brains to grow and our stomachs to shrink. So of any organism on Earth, humans have the smallest disparity between the size of their stomach and the size of their brain. And it's a major impact on our higher level thinking and the way our brains developed and were allowed to develop. And so when you look at other primates, particularly gorillas, they are huge. They have humongous stomachs. Their stomachs are significantly bigger than their brains, so the ratio from stomach size to brain size is a huge ratio. And they basically spend their entire day, they're vegetarians, and they basically spend their entire day eating low-calorie, high-fiber vegetables that are really difficult to process and get nutrients out of. And they basically have to spend their entire day eating just to keep their physiology going. And so cooking vegetables, and so there's this, for those of you that read Eat and Run, you'll read about a period in Jurek, the runner's life, when he went, not only was he completely vegan, but what else did he do? Who read that book? Anybody? Yeah. What else did he do? He didn't cook anything. He went totally raw. Right? So he only ate plants, and he only ate them raw. And he was like, it's just a weird thing to write, but remember he said that muscles started popping out of his body everywhere? It's like, I remember that line really vividly, because I was like, what does that mean? Right? Do you remember that line? Yeah. Yeah, it's like just out of nowhere. He's like, as soon as I went raw, all of a sudden muscles I didn't even know I had started popping out. And I was like, what? Anyways, yeah. We should go heckle him at a race or something and yell that at him. Show me your raw vegan muscles, bruh. No? Not good? We'll think of some better birds. We have time. So the point is, though, the flip side of that is because this is the type, how my mind works, I was like, man, I wonder if this is like a real thing and people like can really sustain themselves on raw diets. And like how, it's clear, so like one of the smartest exercise in physiology anthropologists, evolutionary physiologists in the country, says that one of the biggest things that allowed us to become who we are as a species was that we started processing food. And now you just have this runner saying that he got muscles popping out of everywhere when he started eating all raw diet. And so I started looking into it a little bit, and there's actually it's hard to find data on it, right? Because there's just not that many people following this type of diet. Of course, it would help a lot of people that have really terrible diets, baseline diets. Yeah, it's just an interesting thing to think about. I read a couple like blog posts and things like that about people whose parents raised them as raw vegans, and they just had like a multitude of health complications because they weren't getting enough protein and nutrients and all these different types of things that we get from milk and meat and fortified foods and things like that, right?
You didn't know that. He said that he didn't keep it up very long.
No.
Yeah.
But it's weird because he was like, it wasn't sustainable and stuff like that. And it's almost like he had to rationalize why he wasn't able to do it. It was very pride, ego type thing with him, where it was like, he couldn't just say, this is really stupid for an ultra endurance athlete to try and eat nothing but plants and not cook any of them. I'm running 100 miles a week, sometimes 30 or 40 or 50 miles at a time, and all I'm eating are raw vegetables. Like, he couldn't just say that, right? Like, I'll tell you why your muscles started popping out is because you were completely emaciating, and I'll tell you why it wasn't sustainable, because it's not sustainable. But he had to spin it as if it was like this really important thing that he did for a certain amount of time, where I'm not buying it. I'd be happy to tell him that too, if anyone could get him to this classroom. So the point is, we need phytochemicals. Being able to process food is good. We want to get fruits and vegetables in as many different ways as possible. That means, Saison, stop texting. I'm not. I can see you. Stop looking at Webster. There's time for that. Which means that when you eat breakfast in the morning, do you eat vegetables?
No.
Yeah. Almost none of us do. Start eating some vegetables in the morning.
So you get those packets. You said 2 to 3 servings per packet?
Well, I mean, yes, but you eat the whole packet at once.
Okay.
Like my kids eat.
So if you ate one packet that day, you'd be good.
No. You probably need 2 packets at least per day.
One morning, one night.
Yeah. So $1.50 a day. They go on BOGO too, quite often. And we just go hard when it goes like that. We buy them out. We buy out Safeway. And I don't want you guys buying out Safeway because I need that. Because I need that. I need those. My kids need those packets. They go ape for it. And they say, so they get 1 per meal unless they get other, unless they go for like raw veggies or they get some cooked veggies. But they don't love eating vegetables. Like kids don't really kind of totally get it yet. The little one, the 2-year-old likes vegetables. The 4-year-old doesn't really, but he loves fruit packs. And when they drop them, because sometimes they'll drop it. One day the 2-year-old dropped it, and the 4-year-old started singing about how he dropped his fruit pack to the tune of Jumpman. And so he goes, fruit pack, fruit pack, fruit pack, fruit pack, fruit pack, down. I dropped my fruit pack on the ground. I added that part. It was great. It was great. So, but cooked tomato, like if you're going to cook eggs in the morning, if you're treating yourself, then, and you're going to cook eggs in the morning, then slice up a tomato and put it in there. Yeah, just put it in there. Yeah, cut up bell peppers, put those in there. broccoli, you can put that in there. The other thing you can do is anytime you're making dinner, like if you're making pasta or something like that, you can saute anything except fruit. Don't saute fruit. But any type of vegetable you can cut up. Just put a pile of vegetables, saute it up, put it in your pasta, eat them. It's actually quite easy to get enough vegetables. You just have to be aware of it. So like in the morning, if I really like bagel and cream cheese. It's not the best thing, but I always will like eat a handful of spinach or put a couple tomatoes on top of it or do those types of things to get some color. I'm not saying I got it all figured out. I'm just saying when you're aware of it, you can do those things. And if you can train the athletes that you're working with to do those things, they will be better athletes. And you'll just be healthier in general. Yeah. What else? What did you say?
I said 49, here I come. In the 400.
I think is have a tomato